is utility? Utility in economics refers to the usefulness or enjoyment a consumer can get from a service or good. Although the concept of utility is abstract, it is a useful way to explain how and why consumers make their decisions. In economics, it is a term used to determine the worth or value of a good or service. More specifically, utility is the total satisfaction or benefit derived from consuming a good or service. Economic theories based on rational choice usually assume that consumers will strive to maximize their utility. The economic utility of a good or service is important to understand because it directly influences the demand and therefore price of that good or service. In practice, a consumer's utility is usually impossible to measure or quantify. However, some economists believe that they can indirectly estimate what is the utility of an economic good or service by employing various models. The utility definition in economics is derived from the concept of usefulness. An economic good yields utility to the extent to which it's useful for satisfying a consumer's want or need. Various schools of thought differ as to how to model economic utility and measure the usefulness of a good or service.
Utility theory is developed from a logical deduction. Only when the trading parties expect a benefit do voluntary transactions take place. Otherwise, they would not take place. Benefit in economics refers to gaining increased utility. Economists also assert that people prioritize their activities according to their utility. Because he believes his long-term utility will increase, a laborer chooses to show up for work rather than skip it. When a customer selects to eat an apple over an orange, they must value the apple more and expect greater benefits from it. During the marginalist revolution, which aimed to formalize and mathematicalize economics based on gradual changes, utility gained traction in the field. The concept of utility has gained prominence in microeconomics because mainstream economists today have adopted a rational actor perspective, where their models assume that individuals are motivated solely by self-interest utility maximization.
Ordinary utility refers to the concept of one good being more useful or desirable than another. This conception of utility was not quantified but a qualitative property of an economic good. Later, economics, particularly those of the Australian school, developed this idea into an ordinary theory of utility, or the idea that individuals could order or rank the usefulness of various discrete units of economic goods. Australian economics commentator, in a discovery known as the Marginal Revolution, used this type of framework to help him resolve the diamond-water paradox that had vexed many previous economics because the first available units of any economic good will be put to the most highly valued uses, and subsequent units to go lower value uses. This ordinary theory of utility is useful for explaining the law of diminishing marginal utility and fundamental economy, laws of supplies and demand. Cardinal utility is the idea of measuring economic value through imaginary units known as utils. To Vernally and other economics, utility is modeled as quantifiable or cardinal property of the economic goods that a person consumes. To help with this quantitative measurement of satisfaction, economics assume a unit known as a util to represent the amount of psychological satisfaction a specific good or service generates for a subset of people in various situations. The concept of a measurable util makes it possible to treat economic theory and relationship using mathematical symbols and calculations. However, it separates the theory of economic utility from actual observation and experience, since utils cannot actually be observed, measured, or compared between different economic goods or between individuals. If, for example, an individual judges that a piece of pizza will yield utils and that a bowl of pasta will yield utils, that individual will know that eating the pasta will be more satisfying. For the producers of pizza and pasta, knowing that the average bowl of pasta will yield 2 additional utils will help them price pasta slightly higher than pizza. Additionally, utils can decrease as the number of products or service consumed increases. The first slice of pizza may yield 10 utils, but as more pizza is consumed, the utils may decrease as people become full. This process will help consumers understand how to maximize their utility by allocating their money between multiple types of goods and services, as well as help companies understand how to structure tiered pricing.
The total utility is the total happiness a consumer experiences with the product at any given level of consumption.
If utility in economics is cardinal and measurable, the total utility is defined as the sum of satisfaction that a person can receive from the consumption of all units of a specific product or service. If a person can only consume 3 slices of pizza and the first slice of pizza consumed yields 10 utils, the slice of pizza consumed yields 8 utils, the third slice 2 yields utils, the total utility of pizza would be 20 utils.
Marginal utility is gained by consuming an additional unit of a service or good. The shift in customers' overall utility that occurs when they consume one more unit of an item.
Defined as the additional cardinal utility gained from the consumption of one additional unit of good or service, or the additional ordinal use that a person has for an additional unit 1. Using the same example, from the total utility, if the economic utility of the first slice of pizza is 10 utils, and that the utility of the second slice is 8 utils, the marginal utility of eating the second slice is 8 utils. If utility of third slice is 2 utils, the marginal utility of eating the third slice is 2 utils. In ordinal utility terms, a person might eat the first slice of pizza, share the second slice with their roommate, save the third slice for breakfast, and use the fourth slice as doorstop.
Diminishing marginal utility and the law of demand. So, law of diminishing marginal utility. The finding that the amount of happiness obtained from each additional unit of an item decreases as consumption increases. So, the law of demand is better understood in light of the law of diminishing marginal utility. So, customers will only purchase more of a good if the price drops, because they will not be as happy or benefit from purchasing more of it. How do you measure economic utility? So, while there is no direct way to measure the utility of a certain good for an individual consumer, it is possible to estimate utility through indirect observation. So, for example, if a consumer is willing to spend 10 pesos for a bottle of water, but not 10 pesos and 50 centavos, economists can safely state that a bottle of water has economic utility. So, somewhere between 10 pesos and 10 and 50 centavos. So, however, this becomes difficult in practice because of the number of variables that are present in a typical consumer's choices.
What are the 4 types of economic utility? In behavioral economics, the 4 types of economic utility are form utility, time utility, place utility, and possession utility. These terms refer to the psychological importance attached to different forms of utility. For example, form utility is the result of the design of a product or service, and time utility refers to the ability of a company to provide services when the customers need them.
Form utility is a value of a consumer's derives from a product or services in the way they actually need. Form utility refers to how much value a consumers receive from a product or service in the way that they actually need. Form utility is therefore the incorporation of customer needs and wants into the features and benefits of the products being offered by the company. Form utility may include offering consumers lower prices, more convenience, or a wider selection of products. The goal of this effort is to increase and maximize the perceived value of the products. For an instance, a cosmetic company may conduct focus groups and testing to identify holes in the market related to the different skin types and skin tones. The company may decide to produce and market new offerings to cater to and to complement the needs of a more racially diverse clients. The company can increase its sales while adding the value of its new consumers.
Time utility. This type of utility occurs when a company provides goods and services when consumers demand or need them. Companies analyze how to create or maximize the time utility of their products and then adjust the production process, logistical planning of manufacturing, and delivery. So when demand increases, the company should respond by producing and delivering more of the product to the market. Creating time utility includes considering the hours and days of the week a company might choose to make its services available. For example, a store may open on weekends if customers typically shop for a certain product at that time. It also includes 24-hour availability for a product or the company's customer service department through a phone number or website chat function. Failure to factor in time utility to the equation can lead to a drop in the customer base, which can then result to a loss of revenue.
Place utility refers to making goods or services available in locations that allow consumers to easily access products. So while most people think of place utility as a physical or brick-and-mortar location such as retail stores or shopping malls, the digital age helps broaden the definition of availability. So for instance, companies can utilize place utility through their website. So place utility isn't just about those that we can see outside or in the shopping malls that we can enter and buy the product from, but rather we can also call place utility such as online shops or those that we can see on different search engines that we can order or get services from.
Possession utility is the amount of usefulness or perceived value a consumer derives from owning a specific product and being able to use it as soon as possible. The basic premise behind this utility is that consumers should be able to use a specific good or service as soon as they're able to purchase or obtain it. For instance, someone who purchases the latest iPhone won't get much utility for the product if Apple has it on back order and can't manufacture and ship it to the consumer in a timely fashion. That's why it's important for companies to increase the ease of ownership, which boosts the product's possession utility or perceived value. Consider lenders who offer favorable financing terms toward owning a car, appliance, or home. They would likely create possession utility for these products, leading to an increase in sales and therefore revenue.
So the usefulness of utility. So utility theory has been quite useful in understanding the economic actions of individuals, households, and firms, but only in broad strokes. So in actuality, people might consume a third hamburger for causes unrelated to the standard economic model's rational actor presumption. So for example, a leftover hamburger might be regarded as food waste. So people eat it to avoid it going bad. It is challenging to represent this more moral or qualitative assessment of utility in mathematical models or formulas.
Utility and indifference curves. There's different ways to depict utility, and one of those is an indifferent curve. An indifferent curve is a fundamental graphic tool in economics used to present a consumer's preferences and choices regarding two goods or service.
Higher curves signify higher satisfaction level. Each curve represents a particular utility level.
The shape of an indifference curve is typically convex, sloping downward from left to right. The curve reflects the concept of diminishing marginal rate of substitution,
which indicates that since consumers already own a certain quantity of each good, as they move along the curve, they are willing to exchange fewer units of one good for one another unit. One important aspect of consumers' preference is the decreasing rate of substitution. The ideal consumption option is represented by the point tangency between an indifferent curve and the consumer's budget constraint.
Utility can be used to measure the usefulness of goods and services to consumers, while there are limitations when more variables and differences appear in the market. Various types of economic utility continue to be examined. Not only can it help companies with structuring their tiered pricing, but it can also help consumers learn how to boost the utility of their purchases.